Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl Butler, and you're listening to the Mighty Mommies Quick and Dirty Tips podcast, which will help make your life as a parent a little bit easier and a lot more fun. Welcome. This is episode number 327, titled, How to Raise a Spiritual Child. And today, Mighty Mommy welcomes a very special guest, psychologist Dr. Lisa Miller, author of the new book, The Spiritual Child, the new science on parenting for health and lifelong thriving. Dr. Miller's groundbreaking book explains the link between spirituality and health and shows the strong benefits in children who have a positive, active relationship to spirituality. And now I'm so excited to introduce you to our special guest, Dr. Lisa Miller. Dr. Miller, thank you so much for joining the Mighty Mommy podcast today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
In her book, Dr. Miller combines cutting-edge research with anecdotal evidence from her work as a clinical psychologist to illustrate just how invaluable spirituality is to a child's mental and physical health. She then translates these findings into practical advice for parents, giving them concrete ways to develop and encourage their children's, as well as their own, spiritual well-being. So let's get started. Dr. Miller, can you please define spirituality, especially in relation to child rearing?
Spirituality is one of our core natural endowments. Just like we have a nose for smelling and a body for running and jumping, every child is born with a natural spirituality. Now that can be developed in religion, and for many children their spirituality is embraced by their family's faith tradition. But there also are many children for whom spirituality exists outside of religion, perhaps in nature or in relationships with other people. Both groups are spiritual, those with religion and those without. Both can have a profound sense of spirituality, by which is meant a sense of connection to something bigger that is loving and guiding and sacred.
How do you explain the connection between science and a child's spiritual development?
Science says that every child is born a spiritual child. We are naturally, innately spiritual. Spirituality takes hold and unfolds alongside all other lines of development, cognitive, emotional, and physical development. And in fact, more and more it appears based on science that spirituality is actually the hub of healthy development. Science shows us that a strong spiritual life is a powerful resource for thriving and health in a child or adolescent that lasts their entire lives if it is supported by a parent.
What are some of the advantages that children of spirituality have over those who don't have such beliefs?
Science shows us that spirituality is the most profound resource for thriving and the greatest protection against suffering known to the medical or social research fields. There is nothing as profoundly beneficial for a child as a strong personal spirituality. A child who has a sense of themselves as a sacred self, as worthy and loved, is really inoculated against many of the pitfalls and bumps of childhood and adolescence that would just about break a child whose sense of self was based only on performance. The performance self is ultimately a brittle and weak self. It's really only good while I'm winning, and the day I don't, I'm nothing. But for a child who feels that the core of their being is sacred and valuable simply for being alive, for being loved by you as their parent, that child is far more likely to then turn to the person next to them, the child in their classroom or their sister or brother, and think, you know what? They're valuable too. And those are relationships based on love, forgiveness, encouragement. Those are not relationships based on, do you interest me? Are you popular enough, athletic enough, good enough to shine well on my favor? Those instead are relationships that one might say are spiritual relationships.
Now, so how can we as parents instill a solid foundation of spirituality in our own children if we didn't grow up with a defined spiritual or religious affiliation?
Spirituality is in every single parent and in every single child, and it's there at our beckon and call. And the more we listen and the more we take interest in our natural spirituality, the more it grows. Many people find guidance through their religious faith tradition, and still many people find their way into a deep, shared family spiritual life without religion. For instance, some families gather around the table and have gratitude practice every single night, where every child, even the little 18-month-old, puts into a central bucket or pot something that they're grateful for. It could be a drawing or a statement, but some statement that today my life was abundant, and it wasn't for my own doing or control, but rather life has been generous to me today. A gratitude practice. Another way that families often bring in spirituality is through taking time together in nature and noticing nature as a teacher, as a loving guide. You know, that little mommy duck loves her baby duckling the way I love you and I love your brother. Seeing the connections outside of just our own selves and own family to the bigger world and the bigger design around us. Another way we see spiritual families develop ritual and practice together with or without religion is through family traditions. Families have the opportunity to have special time where they remember grandparents who may have passed, visit sites that were important through the generations, or do a practice or sing a song that has deep meaning to that family. Spirituality is alive and well already. It's just a matter of bringing voice and attention to what's already our birthright.
How can parents start building this concept of spirituality into their children's daily lives?
There's a simple starting point to bringing spirituality into our children's lives. With a very, very young child, just as we teach the name for apple or banana, we can teach the name for spiritual feeling, spiritual experience. Look at this sunset. It is so beautiful. It inspires me. I feel the presence of God, the Holy Father, this life force. Use whatever language is comfortable for you. But whatever you do, don't let the moment pass. Call it for what it is, a sacred, transcendent, spiritual moment shared with your child right there in nature. Our life events are full of spiritual significance, the birth of a younger sibling, even death. These moments that can pass without being understood as being spiritual come to life for your child as significant if you as the parent give them a spiritual name and give the feeling inside your own heart a spiritual name. Children naturally love spiritual action. They love to help other people. They love to care and protect and help heal. You'll find that your child comes over when you have a headache, or you might have a bunched brow, and puts her hands on your forehead and says, there, mommy. Children are little healers. One way that you can cultivate spiritual values in your child is to let them take the lead with your guidance and encouragement in, for instance, bringing food to a homeless person. Or if you see someone fall or slip, let them be the first one over to help an older man get up. Let your child be the healer and the helper. It is more enlivening than anything they could possibly accomplish to really help another person. And then you have set spirituality in motion in your child. They're already living a bigger life.
Can you briefly talk about the 6 spiritual strengths that are outlined in The Spiritual Child and why they're assets to our children's lives now and in the future?
Well, perhaps the most important spiritual strength in a child is to be multilingual in spirituality. For a child to be able to feel a deep sense of spiritual experience, not only through their own family's faith tradition or their own family's language and practice, but through that of another family of a different religious tradition. If a child can know forgiveness or the birth of spring or the sacredness of family through the languages of 2, 3, even 4 other religious faith traditions, that child is truly multilingual. Studies done at Harvard show that as early as age 6, without support for spiritual multilingualism, a child can quickly start to think that their name for the sacred higher power is more real than the name given by another family of another religious tradition. A very, very young child, a first-grade child, can start to feel that their own family's religious language is a more real spirituality than the family of a different religious tradition. And that is the making for religious misunderstanding. We can actively teach spiritual multilingualism to our 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, so that by the time our children enter first grade and meet children from the world's great religious traditions and children from families who are deeply spiritual but not religious, they can know in their heart the common spiritual experience shared by all families and be comfortable hearing their spiritual life told in the names and practices of the world's great varied traditions. A second very important spiritual strength is the development of the inner spiritual compass. If a child can learn to feel that gut instinct, that inkling of the heart as guiding and telling of what is spiritually true and real, that child is far better off as he or she enters the very mixed terrain of the years ahead. Your child will encounter, between childhood and adolescence, a very broad range of experiences. And at the end of the day, the only thing that really guides our child and that we can only really trust as a parent is that our child will know their inner heart, will know that their own inner spiritual compass always points true north, and that that is more real than anything anyone on the outside might say to them.
How can parents enrich their own lives through spirituality, Dr. Miller?
Parents often tell me that they may have been a little spiritual, maybe not so spiritual, but the day their child was born, they knew there was something more. The birth of a child is spiritual awakening for a parent. And in fact, people who all their lives have not considered themselves to be particularly spiritual feel a surge of spirituality when they witness the formation of their family, whether through birth, adoption, remarriage. The formation of a family is a moving, sacred event. Now, once that's mobilized, once we wake up to spirituality as parents, a parent is born alongside the child, we find that the child is a spiritual source for the family. The child's awe for the running river, the sunrise, the child's excitement over the delivery man or riding on a bus is a wake-up call to us. The child essentially reboots our own capacity for awe and wonder. The child is the spiritual source of the family.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller, for all this terrific information. There's even more you can learn from Dr. Miller, so please pick up a copy of The Spiritual Child today. How do you instill spirituality in your child? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section at quickanddirtytips.com/mighty-mommy, or post your ideas on my Mighty Mommy Facebook page, or you can email me at mommy@quickanddirtytips.com. And I hope you'll visit my family-friendly boards at pinterest.com/mightymommyqdt. Be sure to sign up for the upcoming Mighty Mommy newsletter, which is going to be chock full of practical advice to make your parenting life easier and more enjoyable. Keep enjoying your wonderful families, everyone, and until next time, happy parenting.